Car Con Carne is sponsored by Easy Automation. If you're looking to transform your home, office, or business into a smart, seamlessly connected space, Easy Automation delivers custom automation solutions that are tailored to your lifestyle. Easy Automation makes technology work for you, effortlessly, reliably, and always with your satisfaction guaranteed. Visit easyautomation.net or call Dan at 630-730-3728 and take control of your environment today. Car Con Carne is also sponsored by Exploding House Printing. Bands, brands, listeners who want to get the word out, Exploding House Printing can help with your screen printing, embroidery, and other merch needs. Exploding House delivers production efficiency and cost awareness to offer boutique print shop quality at much lower, large print shop prices. Check out their work on Instagram at Exploding House, or go to their website or just email info@explodinghouseprinting.com to get a quote.
It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
Okay, Jaime Black, very excited today to be filling in for James Van Alstyne on the Car Con Carne podcast. Thank you to James for having me in, and to his listeners for having me in as well. So I'm very excited today because we have a very, very cool, very creative and accomplished guest, Stewart Hicks, Associate Dean of Physical Resources and Planning at University of Illinois at Chicago, Associate Professor of Architecture at University of Illinois at Chicago, and co-founder of the Design With company. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am well. I'm well. So, you have this very cool, YouTube series, this very cool creative focus. We're going to talk about all that. I always like getting some, background about people I'm talking to when I'm connecting with them for the first time. So how did architecture and design become your focus? How did this start for you?
Oh boy, that's going back a ways. I do remember the moment when I decided I was studying for an exam for organic chemistry class because I was going to be a pre-med major at Michigan, and I realized I really didn't like studying organic chemistry. um, and so I made a very short-sighted decision to try and find something that I thought I would like studying, and it turned out I did like studying architecture, and that realization, I think, followed me for a while because, I ended up wanting to be a professor, and just the kind of learning of architecture, learning about it and teaching it has always been, from the very start, something that I really enjoyed about the field of architecture. Upon reflection, more recently, though, I pinpointed another moment when I was, I don't know, a pretty young kid, and my mom had one of those house plan books that you used to be able to buy at the grocery store.
Sure.
And and I asked her, I was like, well, what is this? And she showed me what a plan was and talked about how it showed how people like lived in or moved inside of a house. And then I asked if, are we going to be moving or something? And she said, no, I just like to look at the plans and imagine the people's lives inside. And she still does that. I don't know, she likes to go looking at houses and imagine people's lives inside. But for me, that I think was pretty formative because I enjoy looking at plans and imagining people's lives inside. It's just, for me, it's a architect's drawings are like a story to imagine through, and that's been with me from when I do designs and when I talk about it on YouTube, because I think that the communication about architecture and the storytelling behind it is something I'm really interested in.
I think that's really interesting because you're right. Like, architecture tells such a story about our lives, whether it's the homes we live in, the apartment we live in, the spaces we work in, the spaces that we, dine out in, or that we routinely go to that we enjoy, whether it's, your favorite shop or your favorite amusement park or whatever. But like, architecture is kind of this silent language that's all around us at all times, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, I don't know if it's just the term architecture or if it's the fact that, we don't get really introduced to maybe concepts around it till maybe later if we're taking art history class or something. But it seems kind of intimidating to people, or it seems even, I don't know, something that people wouldn't naturally be interested in, or a lot of folks. But like you're saying, that buildings and spaces play such a huge role in all of our lives that I think what I'm trying to do with the YouTube channel and stuff is to try and, you know, tell those stories in ways that, try to engage people that wouldn't necessarily think that they're interested in architecture. So you don't have to be interested in architecture to have an appreciation around for what you're saying, like to try and understand the way that the buildings around us shape our lives in various ways.
No, I think that's really interesting. And you have these really accomplished titles at University of Illinois at Chicago at UIC. Bring us into your work there and what that entails.
I wear a lot of hats, not all of which align or crisscross with YouTube at all. But yeah, so the associate dean thing, that's a position at the college, an administrative position where I basically the client rep for some renovations and work that we're doing. So like I get to interface with architects because we're doing a renovation, and I'm basically trying to collect what all of the people who are going to be using this building, what they want, what they need, and trying to communicate with the architect and the project manager to make sure that their interests are being communicated and dealt with. So for me, that's really nice because I get to stay real close to the technicalities of architecture through that. And then I am a professor, so I teach design studio where students sit at a desk for 12 hours a week, and we go over design challenges and things. And I'm also at like a theory, I have a theory seminar where I started to think about the role of video essays or whatever people want to call it, videos for students. So I have graduate students, and we try to explore what little short video documentaries or things could do for architecture. So I'm trying to kind of bring back the stuff that I'm learning about by making videos for YouTube. And, I think it's so close to the world that those students are going to be inheriting, the world of social media or the world of being able to make real easy videos. I think architecture, I don't know, like hasn't embraced video so much. I mean, a little bit, but I'm so fascinated by like the performance part, or like the communication part, and trying to get students to think about it with me is a really exciting thing.
I mean, I think along the lines of like architecture being all around us, I think especially if you're a younger student or you're a younger person, video is sort of the native language of that generation,
Yeah,
right? Like
right.
whether it's TikTok, whether it's and now, YouTube is like the kind of, main
Old.
competitor to Netflix, but like
Oh yeah,
video is like the sort of like native language now,
I
and it's sort of
know.
the native platform. So
Right.
I think it's interesting that you're telling the story of kind of the world around us in what is quickly becoming like the primary method of storytelling now.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting? It's like it went from, or film and video went from being something that was so distant and
You had to go to film
required so
school.
much equipment and stuff. Yeah, right. And this is something that, like what you're saying, it's a kind of it is sort of universal. Like it's everyone is looking at them and reading, watching them and making them all the time. And yeah, I'm interested in how architects begin to embrace that aspect of the way the world is changing, and trying to get the students to think about that too. I do one thing. I don't make shorts or anything like that. I only make those 15, 12-minute things. So I'm only really trying to think about this really narrow subset of stuff. But yeah, I think that even the learning there is just so interesting to me because yeah, I mean it's just like a way of presenting information and yourself that isn't the same as other ways that you can connect with people.
No, 100%. So you have this YouTube channel named after yourself, and and we'll link it, of course, in the show notes. But how did this come to be? What went into bringing this project to life? What was the learning curve like? Like, bring us into the beginnings of the YouTube channel, because now, and we'll talk about the present work in a moment because it's very accomplished, really incredible work there. But I think we both know at the beginning of a creative venture, there's a lot of kind of like trial and error, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I was or I am a designer. of buildings and things typically, but architects have to know a little bit about everything, sort of, because they when you're designing buildings, so like a hospital or something, you need to know a little bit about medicine, or to design a house, you need to know a little bit about things that take place there. So the education for architects is pretty broad. So we will dabble with video, or dabble with drawings, and things start to butt up against some of those things. But yeah, so I started by doing competitions. And I really liked proposing crazy ideas that I tried to sell people with, boards, or even make a video. So the first time that I made video was for competitions to try and communicate about a design to people, to be able to judge whether our design is a good one or not. And I loved it. I just really enjoyed the creative part of video making. Architecture is so slow. Like making buildings takes years and years, but making a video it can be as fast or as slow as you want. And I like the quicker pace. Anyway, in like 2020, it was COVID, and I took my lecture class. I had to go online, and I didn't want the class to suck. So I tried to work really hard at making these recorded lectures for the students. I like did skits, and tried to make it fun. And at the end of that, I kind of thought about wanting to get into YouTube, but at the end, the students said, you should start a YouTube channel. And their permission like felt like the hump that I hated being on camera. Like I don't like I'm not naturally interested in any of that aspect of being so like out and in public. But the creative part of teaching, storytelling, and making video was really what drew me in. So I started by just turning parts of lectures into videos, but then quickly learning that a lecture is not the same as like a little documentary or a video. There's just so many differences that took years to learn. I knew how to make animation, like silly little animation, like some animations for architecture and stuff like that. But like I think the most challenging one was getting comfortable on camera. Like I'm still not comfortable on camera, but being able to speak on camera took a while. The other stuff, I just kind of set a task per week to try and get better at. So if it's lighting or audio or script writing or whatever. And then about 2 years ago, Evan Montgomery, who I've worked with since then, joined, and we've been able to really accelerate it, like learning curve together, like a lot, because work on workflows and things like that. I like the systems behind the scenes to try and make things more efficient. So the learning curve, it's still steep. I'm still excited about learning various things, and still set, new tasks like rendering software or animation types or something like that, to try and talk about architecture in new ways.
Well, yeah, because there's sort of not like a level 5 where it's like, okay, you've learned everything there is to know about video production. Like it's just sort of like a endless universe that you could keep
Right.
going down that rabbit hole, to mix metaphors. But like like you mentioned, you can learn rendering, you can learn animation, you can learn 3D, you can learn, all these different things to make the videos, better, or just present them differently. So what is like a typical workflow? Because again, these are, and again, we'll link them in the show notes, but like these are really professionally well made, I think very accomplished storytelling in these videos. It's not just
Thank
you
you.
sitting in front of a camera for 15 minutes talking. So, what goes into that?
Oh my. Yeah, well, thank you, first of all. What goes into that? Well, I could send you a photo of there was a day where I mapped out what thought the workflow should be on the whiteboard with like post-it notes. It looks like I don't know, a crazy person trying to like map out, like
That's the point of a
solve a
whiteboard.
crime. I
Yeah.
know, solve a crime or something like that. It starts with what we think would be a great idea. We don't categorize our videos by topic all that much. It's more about like cause and effect. So it's like this thing, like this invention did this over here, or like trying to make connection, or like this disaster or like fire or something changed building codes. Like, so we're trying to always think about that at the early stages. And then I think that there has to be a conflation of, or few things that come together. One is, could we, is there the possibility of an effective title and thumbnail? Because that's how YouTube videos get evaluated by people. Is there a good story? And then is there a learning, is there something valuable that way, educationally? So that's kind of our decision process. So then we research, we gather assets by like drawing them, 3D modeling them, or, using stock things, and write the script, which is about 2,000 or so words, which makes about a 12-minute video. So it's about 4 pages. And then we cut up the script into every single line. So every sentence gets its own cell in a like a big old spreadsheet. And then we map out what the visuals and everything are going to be for every line. And sometimes that's a video that we get off of, a site, or sometimes it's something we have to animate. And we have different categories of 2D and 3D animations. And so we, we call it the run of show, and kind of map it all out there. And then we record me on camera so that we have the audio to be able to time all of our animations to, and then use that recording to then build up and animate everything and then package it all together. So we usually have a couple videos going, but we put out a video every 3 weeks. But it takes about 6 weeks, from start to finish, to be able to, at least from start to finish, to kind of complete that process.
Even 6 weeks, which maybe somebody who's not a creator or a digital media editor might think, oh, 6 weeks, that sounds like a lot of time. What you're describing to me, before you gave me a time frame, I'd be like, okay, well, that's at least, if he's speeding through this and staying up late at night, that's 3 months per video. Six
Oh,
weeks, that's
thanks.
like, but I mean, that's I guess I'm just impressed by that workflow. And how did you and any of your collaborators, like, how did you guys find that sweet spot of like, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and this will keep us on target, and this will keep us on schedule, and that's how we're going to keep this going, and of course be consistent, which we know is
Right.
key in this game.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's tough because I still do all this stuff at the university too. So it's like,
Sure, you just have
it's
your little
like,
side job at the
right.
university, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Constantly evaluating for ourselves. Like it seemed like any moment where there was a bottleneck that seemed like it didn't need to be there, be like, well, why? We would interrogate it, like, for a few months. Like, I think we really tried to figure it out. So one of the big steps was we used to animate without me having recorded, but then we couldn't time the animations real well to the explanation. And so, just shifting that, being able to key things in better, changed everything for like the ability to create a more like seamless relationship between what's being talked about and then what's on screen. So yeah, it's like constant evaluation. I like systems. I'm like a systems thinker, so like for me that's a real fun part of this, is like trying to figure out like how to have the most maximum creativity, that the system produces creativity, not just like locked in something, but in an efficient way. So like to be able to balance the efficiency with room for creativity and new things is I think a fun challenge. So I could nerd out about that kind of stuff all the time, but I'm sure other people aren't as interested in it. But
No, but
yeah, I like a lot.
as an editor and creator myself, I think the creative process is really
Yeah,
interesting, and it's something worth talking about with other
yeah,
creators, because again, we both know that these things don't happen on their own. Videos,
right.
podcasts, whatever it is, a great graphic design flyer, like those things just don't magically happen, and they don't happen with somebody sitting down at the computer for 5 or 10 minutes or an hour and being like, "Oh, I'm done."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that's the
build.
tough part, is like getting chunks of time to be able to like get into the right headspace for something.
Yeah, just even getting into the headspace and not having interruptions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
We started doing a couple projects with 4 other people recently, and it's amazing how really simple things can really disrupt our workflow. So like not being able to lock the script down early, for us, it's fine. We just kind of like, we're the only people who need to be impressed by the script, and we can lock it down. But when you're working for a client, that workflow might shift a little bit, and so even those small shifts mean a lot for us, and we're trying to figure that out to kind of make things a little more robust when there are other factors that aren't so in our control. But, again, that's a kind of dirty
Sure.
inside stuff. But
Well, like switching gears a little bit here, like talking about the content of the videos, like I
Mhm.
know not all of them are about Chicago, but some of them are about Chicago, and certainly,
About two-thirds are
yeah.
usually.
And you
Yeah.
live in the Chicagoland area, I'm assuming, because you're at
Yep.
UIC.
Yep.
And we both know that Chicago, I mean, that's an architecture city, right? So, what role does Chicago play in your work? What are you inspired by around the city? Like, how does that factor into what you're creating?
Yeah. Chicago is absolutely key, I think. The videos, I don't think I can make the same kind of content from anywhere else. And I recently just finished a project with some folks for the Chicago Architecture Biennial. And what we did for that is we mapped every single part of a video that is about Chicago to a location and created a 3D navigatable map where you can click on it and it will take you to the time-stamped part of that video that is about that place. So trying to not be beholden to the YouTube algorithm of like how the videos get distributed, but like using this place-based map. And then what we found so interesting is that we use Chicago in a couple different ways. One is like what you're saying, is like it's an architecture city. So, Frank Lloyd Wright, did a lot of work here. And so a lot of the times that story about the city is about these really exceptional buildings that some, singular genius architect created. And sometimes we talk about that, but usually it's more often talking about Chicago as just a place to live, and an example of a place to live because we're trying to connect architecture and buildings to everyday life and things that people are connected with. So Chicago's great for that because Chicago can do both of those things. It can be this like home for these exceptional buildings, but it can also be like just a regular place where somebody lives and be relatable to folks when you talk about it that way. Not all cities can be like that. Like New York is always New York, and it's only relatable to people who are living in New York as a place to live, right? Or LA is the same way. Like, so, but Chicago can do both of those things. And so for us, that's really pretty key, I think, to be able to use it to continue drawing from the city, to be able to continue talking about, you know, the role of buildings in people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're, looking ahead to like, your next wave of videos that you're going to produce, how do you find subjects or what is your inspiration? Or do you have a list that's like, well, here's the next 60 topics we can get to over the next 2 years or whatever?
We do have a list, but it's usually more like a well from which to draw from, not a plan. We don't plan out too far. I think usually we'll get fascinated by something, and there'll be a few videos about that in a row. Or we'll be fascinated by a technical thing and be like, oh, well, we want to make this kind of thing, get good at that. So it'll be kind of guided from internal just interests. But then we'll see like, oh man, we did too many of those in a row. We got to shift gears. We're talking about homes too much, but we also talk about cities, so we should jump scale. So there's a back and forth there. But it's interesting because like the workflow, there's a lag. So because of just timing, so we can't really respond to things we notice till like 6 weeks later, things like that. So it's not quite as quick. But next topics, there's going to be one, we're going to be talking about O'Hare. That's really fun. I think part of that answer, or part of my answer to that question too, is when do we feel ready to be able to tell that story? Like, when do we feel like we have a handle on the kinds of tasks that it's going to ask of us that we think we can do it justice? So like, I don't know. I didn't want to do a story about something like big like O'Hare without, I don't know, feeling like I had my ducks in a row or something,
It's a lot of
and
research. Yeah.
exactly. So that one's coming up. I remember thinking about that about Marina City because like Marina City is just so important to me, and I'm,
And people love
like,
it. Like
and
that
people love
that's
it.
like such a
Right,
go-to, yeah,
right,
marker in the city. Yeah.
right. So I didn't want to do it until I felt like I could do it the way I wanted to. So there is this kind of, well, I'm going to wait on that until I feel like I can do it the way I want to. that's just kind of an intuitive feeling you get when it's like, oh, I think I'm ready to tackle that one now, as you go. So there's ones in the back of our heads is like, yeah, that one would be great. We'll figure that out someday. And then ones that are a little more immediate. But I think we're not too beholden by like news or current events like because it does take us so long that it's not going to be news anymore or like anything by the time we're done. So we try to pick evergreen topics that could come out kind of anytime and people could watch and last and be of value for a long time. So YouTube becomes a kind of archive of these and not just chasing, whatever's happening right now.
Yeah, I think that content gets, it expires very quickly. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a bottle of
Right.
milk that's been opened, and it's like there's a ticking clock there.
Right.
So let's go out on this note because this is so cool, and I appreciate the time. You know, we're in a moment now where, previously, if you were a digital media creator, that was for a specific type of person, maybe. Now everyone needs
Mm.
to be a digital storyteller, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what type of work you do. And so for anybody who hasn't, become a digital storyteller themselves, it doesn't have to be YouTube, but like, what advice would you give for, let's say, folks that haven't started a creator journey yet and are thinking, well, maybe I do want to launch a newsletter or a TikTok or a Substack or a, YouTube or whatever it is, but they haven't jumped in yet.
Yeah. Oh, what a great question. For me, I think that stupid advice to just start is was really key because I I have I have a supercut edit of my me trying to record the first video, and I tried recording it over probably 5 months, 6 months, or something like that, where I did dozens and dozens of times because I didn't like it, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna put it out, and then I'm gonna every week get better, so that was key. And then I think the next step was what are my like limitation? Like, what am I just not good at doing? And which of those should I try and solve? And which ones should I just lean into and get better at these other things? Because I'm not going to be doing that. And just kind of, I think, assessing that and being okay with like, yeah, it's just not, that one's not me. Like, I can't walk and talk, for instance. Like, some people can memorize a lot of lines and then walk like 50 paces and talk to the camera. I can't do it, like or I mean that's a dumb example, but like there's just certain things I don't feel real comfortable with and I just don't even care to get better at. But talking on camera, I hated it. I was terrible at it, but that was something I really wanted to get better at because it felt like important that there be that I don't know, like I thought it was important to be a not just a faceless channel talking about architecture and buildings. It felt like it needed somebody to be there to kind of be a common person that you come back to and that you trust sort of like to talk about something. So it felt like that was an important piece of it. So yeah, that was something I was like, wow, I got to get over that. I got to get better at that. And so the combination of those two things, like just start and then being okay with certain limitations and picking your battles about which ones you want to plow through and how you just want to take advantage of the things that you're naturally maybe more gifted at or more interested in, and then just get better.
I love that. I completely agree. I think that's all tremendous advice. The YouTube channel is so cool. Again, we'll link that in the show notes here. Stewart Hicks, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thanks, James Van Ossel and Kark and Carney, for having me in as a guest host today, and everybody else for listening.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.